my name is Mark, and this is Why I Hate the World. And today I'm going to be talking about the Rush Limbaugh-Sandra Fluke controversy and the wider implications of what that actually means. So, unless you've been living under a rock or a cave somewhere, you probably know what's going on. And what happened was that Rush Limbaugh, on his show, made some comments about a person named Sandra Fluke. And if you don't know who Sandra Fluke is, she's a law student that testified before Congress in a congressional panel. And he basically made a bunch of really lewd and misogynistic type comments about her, and is paying the price for it. Okay. And so if you haven't really been keeping up with this, like, essentially it went down like this. There is a section of the Patient Protection and Affordable Health Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare, right? And it's slated to come into effect here pretty soon. And it's a section that says that healthcare insurance providers have to provide for contraception, right? And this was actually something that they agreed to when it was being written, because it's much cheaper to provide contraception than it is to pay for a full birth, because usually, like, having a full birth is somewhere in the area of like $20,000 or something fucking ridiculous like that, right? So it's much cheaper to pay for, contraception and daycare, birth control pills and rubbers and shit like that, right? Anyway, condoms, So what happened is that the religious right wing protested this, specifically the Catholic Church, saying that it was against their religious views, which is ridiculous, because somewhere to the effect of like 95% of Catholics use fucking contraception, but whatever, So this was something that, it started a little mild, kind of mini little controversy, right? So Obama basically agreed to allow an exception, for religious institutions, which I think is bullshit, but whatever, separation of church and state, that's fine, right? So anyway, so it might have died there, right, until basically the Republicans started turning it into an issue, right? And it kind of started with Rick Santorum, and he used it as an opportunity to score some brownie points with the religious right wing, going around saying that, Christians were being persecuted and shit like that, and it's Obama's war on religion, remember this shit, right? Anyway, so he went out, and they tried to turn it into a scandal, right? And it didn't really work, okay? It's basically, nobody fucking paid attention to it. And so then there was a thing called the Blunt Amendment, which was introduced in the House into a bill that would, into this bill that would allow religious institutions to, opt out of this provision of Obamacare, right? There was a thing called the Blunt Amendment, and what that was is that it would have allowed any employer to opt out of providing any healthcare insurance for any kind of medical treatment at all because of religious views. And it basically was a way to undo Obamacare, is what it is, right? So now you start seeing, like, what this is all really about. It's like, oh, it's not really about contraception. It's really about undoing Obamacare, right? So anyhow, thankfully that got tabled, because that was just horseshit, right? And the vote was along party lines, essentially. So just remember that. They tried to basically destroy Obamacare, right? And it was, while this was being debated, there was a congressional panel, and it was called this, listen to the title of this congressional panel, right? It was called Lines Crossed, Separation of Church and State, Has the Obama Administration Trampled on Freedom of Religion and Freedom of Conscience? Okay, and that's the name of the fucking panel. It's like, oh my fucking god. Anyway, so this was a panel that the fucking the Tea Party assholes in the House basically put up to, like, smear Obamacare, and it was famous because it was a thing that was talking about women's health, and it had no women on it, right? If you guys remember seeing that, it was like something like 12 men on there, all of them over the age of 50, and there was no women talking about women's health issues on this panel, right? It's because it was a farce. But anyway, so this is the panel that Sandra Fluke went up against, and went up and testified for. And she went on and basically was, talking about contraception and how it can be used for medical uses besides just preventing pregnancy. Something like one of her friends had cysts on her ovaries, and she needed to take birth control pills in order to regulate that and stuff like that, right? That's where this came from. And after that, that's when Rush Limbaugh came up and made all of his statements, calling her a fucking, saying that she had too much sex and all this other crap, and then she should videotape it and put it on the internet and all this other baloney. I'll leave it to you to look up exactly what he said. I mean, but, it was pretty fucking misogynistic, And it's just, I don't know. So that's essentially what happened. And basically the entire thing just blew up in his fucking face. And it's like, good, I mean, it appears that for Rush Limbaugh, he's up shit creek without a paddle right now, as of March 9th, something like, there was about 50 different advertisers have pulled out of his show, and if you listen to his show, it's basically filled with the free ads that you get from the ad council, which it's like when you have a radio show that doesn't have enough advertising, they take it from this ad council thing, right? So he's got free advertisements for local businesses and shit, come to my fucking restaurant and that kind of thing, and he's trying to play it off cool. He's like, I don't need it. We have 80,000 advertisers that are lined up, and it's like, no, you don't. He basically just bit his own fucking dick off, right? And and I can't be good for him. Fuck him. That's what he fucking gets. First it was Dr. Laura, then it was fucking Glenn Beck, and now it's Rush Limbaugh. It's like finally people are starting to revolt against these fucking hate mongers on the radio, and I just hope that, because he's kind of like the biggest one out of all of them. We have all these little mini hate mongers that say controversial things on purpose in order to get ratings, and Rush Limbaugh is like the kind of the top of the shit heap, because this is the kind of thing that he does for a living, and I don't know. So fuck that guy. I'm glad that he's fucking starting to actually get some repercussions for for something that I said. I mean, anyhow. But I mean, I really do have no sympathy for these people, because people like Rush Limbaugh, I mean, he makes a living by spreading hate. That's what he does. He drives wedges in between people, and he basically lies to get money. That's what he does. He goes on the air and he says a bunch of lies, and then people pay him for it, right? And the thing is that he's incredibly powerful, all right? He has 20 million listeners that tune into his show, and you can always tell when you encounter a Rush Limbaugh listener, because they basically just repeat the exact same fucking thing that he says over and over and over. You can always find him somewhere. When you go on a forum or somewhere, you can tell exactly, they'll just repeat verbatim what he says, because they're just these brainless fucking automatons that just have no fucking thought in their head, these ditto heads is what they call them, and for good reason, okay? I mean, they wear that badge it's a badge of honor, and it's an, I don't know. Anyway, but he is, getting back to wrestling, he is actually one of the people, he could get things done. If he wanted something, he actually has a voice powerful enough to actually get it, right? And he doesn't use his power. There's that thing, power and responsibility, right? He uses it to get money, okay? There was something I read a few years ago, I think it was 5 years ago, where Clear Channel laid off something like 1,800 people, and at the same time they signed Rush Limbaugh on for a $400 million bonus. And if you did the math, it found out that the $400 million was essentially the salary for these 1,800 people. It's basically they fired all these people, took their money and gave it to Rush Limbaugh, and he didn't even say anything about it. It's how can you go to work, right, knowing that your job cost 1,800 other jobs and not even doesn't even faze you? It's that's the kind of person Rush Limbaugh is, right? And I don't know, and just remember that this guy, if the tables were turned, if the people that brought in the paychecks were liberals and progressives, he'd be basically standing up for them also. He'd be saying the exact same things, except from the liberal and progressive side, if that's where the money came from, because he's in it for the money, all right? That's basically what it is. He would switch sides in a second if that's where the paycheck was coming from, all right? You know, and I hope that this is it. I hope this is like the controversy that finally breaks this fucking guy, and then we can like relegate his ass to fucking satellite XM radio obscurity with Dr. Laura and Glenn Beck, you know, and that's what I hope, all right? Because, you know, maybe then no one will listen to this fat fucking stupid bullshit. I mean, seriously, you know, fuck that guy, right? But more importantly, though, more importantly than that, I think is that this little debacle kind of shows how empty the Republican platform is, because, you know, they have nothing. I mean, all right, every election that comes around, the Republicans, they come up with some kind of galvanizing topic, you know, some kind of boogeyman to scare their people into vote, to showing up to vote. That's what they do, okay? They don't actually, like, you know, the Republican voters, you know, the low information voters, they don't actually decide to vote based on, you know, any information. That's why they're called low information voters. You know, they don't know what's going on, okay? They vote based on feeling, okay? And you can see this when if you ever talk to any of them. You know, there was a video that I saw a little while ago where a lady said something like I don't think, I just react. You know, she was like a Tea Party person. It's like, exactly. If I can find it, I'll put a link to it in the thing. But it was very, very telling. It's like, that's exactly it. You don't think, you fucking react. That's what these people do. They react. That's why we call them reactionaries, right? That's why they only react to think. They're incapable of processing and making connections and what all this shit actually really means, you know, and how to see how they're being fucking manipulated. So, you know, so they need something to scare them into voting, or else they don't show up. Okay, and that's kind of what happened in 2008. You know, they had nothing to scare them, so they didn't really show up, you know. And so in 2010, if you remember, it was like Muslims, you know, it was Muslims and terrorism. You know, you had the fucking mosque in New York, and then also it was illegal aliens. That was another thing. And that was the thing that they used to scare all the fucking Tea Party people into showing up and voting, right? This year, they don't really seem to have anything, okay? So they tried to turn this contraception controversy into their galvanizing topic for this year, you know? You know, basically get enough people pissed off about the fact that they're, you know, Christians being persecuted or whatever, right? And basically they were trying to turn that into a controversy that their politicians could ride into office with, and it just didn't fucking work. I mean, it's awesome. The shit just totally exploded in their face, you know? And it says to me that, first off, they're fucking empty. They have nothing, right? You know, you know, we voted all these fucking people in 2010. They voted all these people in, all these fucking teabagger morons, right? And they haven't done anything. You know, we have an economy which is like fucking at 8% unemployment, which is slowly getting better, but no thanks to fucking them, all right? They haven't done shit. They haven't passed any jobs bills. They haven't done any stimulus. They haven't done anything. All they've done is fucking screwed around with like these, you know, contraception and trying to get abortion banned and shit like that. And it's like, you know, and it's not fucking working for them. People are basically turning against it, and it's because, like I said I had a few videos like this, you know, like I said in my last video, like, the culture war is over, okay? It's over. People don't care anymore, all right? You know, you're trying to mess with contraception, and people are like, fuck that, that's ridiculous. People like having sex, okay? People like using contraception. People like having sex and not having children, all right? The culture has moved over to the left, and where this is acceptable, all right? This isn't 1955 anymore, where you can, like, you know, where the idea of like premarital sex is like controversial. It's like nobody gives a fuck anymore, right? They're trying to run on these idiotic culture war things, and they're just losing. And it's, you know, and it's fucking glorious. It's like, good. I hope they go for it all the way, and they're just gonna get ass stomped this November, you know. But it tells me, it's like, the fact that they would even do this, you know, that they would even try to spin this controversy into their galvanizing topic, you know, into one of their party platforms. I mean, it tells me that they're really how far off of the button they really are. How, you know, how divorced from reality these people really are. I mean, you know, I mean, for the last 4 years, think about it. Like, we haven't had a budget passed in the last 4 years. Okay, there's been nothing. All right, the wheels of government have essentially ground to a halt. Okay, we had, since especially since the fucking Tea Party people got elected in there, they haven't done anything. There's been no budgets. There's been no stimuluses. There's been nothing, zero, nada. All right, all they're doing is they're basically blocking everything. Okay, and then they turn around and they fuck around with contraception. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? And I think that people out there are just not falling for it. I think even the conservatives are like going through the motions because they know the shit's not going to work, and they know that they got fucking nothing, right? And it's only the really hardcore idiotic religious people that are actually going to show up. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just ridiculous, because I don't know, folks. Please, I guess if we could just take away from all this is just, please don't vote for these assholes in November. I guess that's really all there is to it. We need to remove these people need to be removed from the government so we can get some actual progress. Okay, we have many problems out there that need to be solved, and these guys aren't solving any fucking problems. I guess that's really what it all comes down to. Adios.